Abraham, you have touched my life in such a wonderful and transformational way, and in so doing have changed every life that I interact with. I have a variety of questions that are not only important to my life, but to many that will be receiving your magnificent clarity. Shall we begin? What vibrational effect in a co-creative relationship do fantasies have? For example, if I have a sexual fantasy that I enjoy and it does not involve my spouse, does this create some discord in our relationship, even though she is not aware of it consciously?
It depends on how you feel about it. In other words, if you offer a sexual fantasy and it's exhilarating to you and you're not factoring in how she would feel if she knew, then you're offering a vibration that's pure, which can only be uplifting in nature to her. And so, again, it's about you cleaning up your vibration. But few of you really are able to isolate your vibration without including how other people feel about it. But that still is the answer.
Okay, can I continue on this vein? If we enter a public place, and I happen to see a woman that I perceive as attractive and beautiful, she often picks up on this no matter how subtle and brief my attention.
Good.
This often results...
Why keep it to yourself when it can uplift her?
This often results in some discomfort.
For who?
For her and invariably for me.
It makes her uncomfortable to feel appreciated?
Well, if I'm looking upon someone else and appreciating them, that seems to activate something within her.
Within who?
Within her. Yes, my spouse.
Well, if you, through your life experience, train your mate into believing that the only appreciation that you could offer has to be directed only at her, you have encouraged her into expecting you to live a very limited life experience. And it also fosters within her a dependency upon your attention, which you cannot possibly uphold. So you're setting both you and her up for failure, for discomfort, constant discomfort. And so we know that this is not an easy thing to all of a sudden rectify, because so many relationships are sort of fostered in that way. Even your marriage vows tend to say, we will hold only unto ourselves, and we will not appreciate anybody else, and we'll stay together no matter how rotten we are to each other, in sickness and in health, until death do us part, and please God, let it come soon. So let's say you walk into a place and you see someone who you think is beautiful. Now, are you allowed to look at beautiful flowers?
Yes.
Are you allowed to look at beautiful sunsets?
Yes.
So you're allowed to find appreciation for anything that your wife does not see as competition. Mm-hmm. So now, if we were a physician trying to cure the illness, we could give you techniques so that you could bolster her, and we could teach you how to use your eyes more effectively so that you could only secretly appreciate others, in other words. But what we really want to do is to get at the cause of it, which is the insecurity that your spouse is feeling. What is the cause for her insecurity? And we want you to understand, and we don't want it to hurt your feelings, although it might be a good thing if it does. Her insecurity isn't nearly as much about you as you think it is, or as she thinks it is. In other words, it's about her vibrational relativity. When someone is feeling insecure, it's about them having practiced thoughts that does not allow full alignment with source energy.
Right.
And when you're not allowing yourself to blossom in the full way that you are, then that discomfort is present within you, and you gravitate toward many things that you think is the reason for it. When you come together in relationships, it's interesting. In most cases, not always, but this is usually the case. Each of you are finding something that you appreciate in the other. Mm-hmm. Sort of like the stranger that you are appreciating across the room. You're finding something that you appreciate. And as you find something that you appreciate, you become a vibrational match to your source, because your source finds something to appreciate in everyone to whom you focus. Everyone that you lay your eyes upon, source is finding something to appreciate. So as you finds something that you're focused upon, and source is finding something to appreciate, and you come into a vibrational alignment with that, now you are the whole of who you are, and it's an uplifting experience. So here you are, new in this relationship, and you are appreciating her, and she is appreciating you, which means both of you have come into alignment with your source, and now you've got two totally connected beings who are focused upon one another, and it is ecstasy. That's as good as life gets, you see. But then, if your connection to source is dependent upon somebody else's attention of you, now you have to hold them hostage. Now they can never turn their attention to anything else. Otherwise, you're like a puppet that somebody let go of the strings. And then you say, our relationship doesn't feel the way it once felt. You don't love me as much as you once did. And we want to say it's not about how the other is holding you. It's about how you are holding the other in the way the other is holding you. Here's the best definition that we could give of insecurity. Insecurity is the way I feel when the way I feel is dependent upon something you do. Correct. Because I can't control what you do, even with marriage vows. I can't control what you do, even with prenuptial agreements. I can't control what you do, even with dictates from God and church and country and laws. I can't control what anyone else does. And if my happiness, if my sense of well-being depends upon how you look at me when you can't possibly only hold me as your object of attention, then I'm setting myself up for a lot of trouble, you see. It's an interesting thing as we watch male and female in your society. Not always the case, but often. His dominant quest is to be free. Hers too, really. But society has caused her to focus more upon trying to soothe that raging insecurity that she's been developing through society. And so she feels insecure. He wants freedom. And the more he seeks freedom, the more insecure she gets. And the more insecure she feels, the more bound he feels. And so this is the basic struggle that we see, at least in the Western world, of the consciousness between partnerships. And you've both got to get over it. In other words, you cannot change your behavior enough to make someone else feel secure. And that's why when you say, I see someone across the room and I like what I see, we say good. And when you say, and the woman who sees me appreciating her likes what I see, we say good. And you say, and my mate hates it, we say good. Because she's got some work to do. In other words, she's got to get over that. She cannot let her happiness depend upon your behavior, or she's going to hate you for one reason or another forevermore. You've got to tend to your emotional scale, and she's got to attend to her emotional scale. And when you make her emotional scale your job, then you're like the government that makes promises it can't keep. And people end up on rooftops because they're not self-sufficient, because they believed the lies that the government well-meaningly offered. In other words, your government wants to believe that it has the ability to do all your thinking for you. It just can't.
I can't say how excited I am because words can't express it. This is a wonderful vehicle you give us. I've always been a powerful idealist, and you've sort of explained to me what idealism really means. And I've always been someone who's had a fabulously fantasy life, an inner life, and imagination life. And I have a few questions regarding that. And when I express my appreciation for giving this, I express it in an incredibly profound way, because really to know that you're life's son, that you're God's expression here is something that's unbelievable and unbelievably emotional. And I have two or three questions. When I was young, I had a little invisible friend called Kiki. And she was with me for 8, 9, 10 years of my childhood. And she was real. And I often have problems between reality and dreams and fantasy. But she was real to me, and she was so real to me that my parents actually encouraged her. On weekends, for special meals, they'd actually allow me to set a plate for her to eat. In school, I would have a desk for her, and my teachers would allow me to have a desk. I was sort of a little peculiar kid, I guess, with this fantasy life. They put me in a drama class, and she'd let me fly like a butterfly to Brazil or a goose down south, like through imagination. She would help me fly as well as others. My question to you is, who is she, and what role does she play in my life?
Well, she is real in every sense of the word. You are all extensions of source energy. And it's interesting to us that there is enough separation between you and who you really are that so much of the world would call that unrealistic fantasy, when everyone has this non-physical energy, essence, friend surrounding you. And the fact that you could feel it in a palpable enough way that you named it and identified it and felt the personality of it is what we were getting at earlier when we talked about who you are and what you know when you were born. The greatest advantage that you had were people up close to you who allowed you to continue your awareness of it. And the credit goes not only to them, and it does, but more to you because of your insistence on it. In other words, they caved in to letting you have your invisible friend because you were so insistent on the reality of your invisible friend. And this is a powerful point that we're wanting to make here today, that when you know something, even though everybody else doesn't know it, but you know it so powerfully, even though everybody else doesn't know it, but you know it so powerfully, even though everybody else doesn't know it, that eventually they don't know it because none of them ever saw Kiki. But you knew it so powerfully that they began to know your knowing. And that really is the best definition we know of what faith is. Faith in what is unseen. It's vibrationally, you knew it as a child so powerfully that you were able to manifest it. Now, you said invisible friend. Invisible to you too. You weren't seeing Kiki either, yes? Or did you mean invisible because others did not see?
Others did not see. I saw her actually, I could describe her as 3-4 inches. She was with me. And she was with me in so many instances. Even when I had my little teddy bear or my dog, my friends would come over. She would play Lego with my friends. And my friends thought I was a little offbeat, but they did allow her.
So you were receiving the vibration of this source who surrounds you and translating it visually into the best description. And what was the personality of this? Was this a controlling little being?
No, she was
Not at all.
fun-loving and wonderful. Like I felt incredibly appreciative and loving and joyous.
And did she honor you and respect you?
Absolutely.
And see your wisdom?
Absolutely.
She was source energy, as defined through your physical vision, you see. Some could call it inner being. It is the stuff that fairies are made of. In other words, so many children, so many people close to source energy, knowing the vibration of that, pure enough in your own heart, because you were allowed to be that you were able to continue to interpret that. Is Kiki still around?
Not at this moment. I think we both agreed to leave when I was about 8-9 years ago, but I've had a reawakening through some situation. As you know, in this path, you sometimes are closer to source and sometimes a little bit further. And the last 4 or 5 months, I've had a real awakening, so I've had a craving and wanted the insight.
Well, the thing that we want to say to you is that this energy that you are naming, Kiki, has not left and will not ever. Your ability to interact is all about your wanting and your allowing. So when you say we made an agreement, we would say it was your decision and you are the creator of your experience. But there anytime you want it, in any form you want it. People get a little uncomfortable with those who have experiences that are different from what they are having. As Esther listened to people describing things similar to what she is experiencing with Abraham, Esther said to us many, many times, why are they lying, Abraham? Why are they saying it is like that? when you and I know it's like this. And we said to Esther again and again, there are no two experiences that are the same. Mm-hmm. Don't compare your experience with anyone else's, because then there's a distortion.